If you played back then, you already know how crazy December 2018 was. We had the Broly movie collab, the birth of the Holy Trinity, and the very first quote-unquote Legends Limited character. And it all started with one of the craziest units to ever release, transforming Broly. So stay tuned while we take a look back at one of Legends' wildest months. The month of December started with a new Legends Rising banner, this time focused on Hybrid Saiyan characters, but unlike the last few banners, this one was clearly a trap banner, just there to drain your Chrono Crystals, before the long-awaited Broly movie celebration. The banner featured Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, Super Saiyan Trunks, Super Trunks, Kid Trunks and Kid Goten. And honestly, the banner was not that great. Like, the strongest unit here was probably Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, who, don't get me wrong, was still pretty decent. He was the sole reason the Hybrid Saiyan team was even a thing. Like, without him, the entire tag couldn't be played in PvP. His damage was still solid, and his last man standing unique ability could clutch some wins. But he just wasn't on the level of recent units like Super Saiyan 3 Goku or Super Gogeta. And I guess Goten still had decent damage output, especially when paired with Kid Trunks, but he brought almost nothing else to the team, and his reliance on Kid Trunks made him hard to use outside of like the Hybrid Saiyan tag. And since Hybrid Saiyans were not as competitive at the time, his usefulness was limited. The only semi-viable unit in that lineup was Super Saiyan Trunks, but even that was a stretch. He could technically fit into a Super Saiyan team alongside Bardock because he was red, but that was only for the players who didn't have Super Gogeta. Like, if you had Super Gogeta, that guy was just completely useless. Beyond the banner itself, they also dropped a few couple things that day. A new hard mode for the second part of the book 4 of the story, a list of the top 20 PvP characters from the last Super Spacetime Duel, which gave us a glimpse at what units could get buffed in a future Balanced Changes update. 2 days later, Legends dropped a Google Play Awards Thank You Login bonus, which celebrated Legends being featured on the Play Store's Best of 2018 list. Players received a total of 3,000 Chrono Crystals, including a unique 2,000 bonus on the very first day. It also gave a guaranteed Sparking ticket and other small rewards spread across 14 logins. The fact that the logins didn't have to be consecutive was actually pretty cool, so players had until January 31st, 2019 to claim everything. Alongside the new login bonus campaign, Bandai released a small patch update that fixed a major bug involving Super Saiyan Bardock's support ability. Like, tap attacks were buffed way more than they were intended to, like you could genuinely tap attack people to death with a super type buff because of that bug. Legends then spammed the game with more Legends Rising banners, just to try and empty everyone's wallets before the real big banners. Around the same time, a major app update went live, introducing several UI improvements and minor gameplay tweaks. A complete redesign of the main menu layout, story and events were now split into separate tabs, the equipment selection screen was changed so that usable equipments appeared at the top, the ability to preview upgraded special moves directly from the summon screen, a free unique equipment, the King Vegeta equip, which could be equipped to any Vegeta unit for a boost to critical rate, blast defense and attack, a new PvP season offering an exclusive equipment piece for sagas from the movie's characters, which was actually not bad. Like, it gave blast attack, strike defense and strike attack, so generally a decent equip for Janemba or Gogeta. A new Extreme Yellow Bardock Scald battle, letting players farm 200 crystals through the usual EX stage, which was actually pretty decent. And yeah, with the new equipments and some data mined assets, it was pretty clear by that point that the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie collab banner was right around the corner. After weeks of build up, Dragon Ball Super Broly finally arrived in Dragon Ball Legends 2 days later, and with him came one of the most impactful updates the game had seen since launch. The new story event let us farm a new wrathful Broly, who once fully maxed out was actually pretty good. He was a red Mini-type fighter, his special move dealt major impact damage and ignored 50% of the enemy's cover damage cut for 25 timer counts, which was actually not bad with the Regen and Android teams still running around, 2 teams who had characters with some pretty nasty cover changes abilities. His green card boosted his strike damage by 20% and debuffed the enemies, making them receive 20% more blast damage. Then his main ability drew his ultimate arts card and healed 20% of his HP. The ultimate itself dealt massive impact damage and had a 20% chance to feint the enemy, while also having blast armor, which was actually pretty nasty back then, as I'll explain when we'll go over the new summonable Broly. As for his unique abilities, the first one gave him 5% damage inflicted every time he used a strike card for 10 timer counts, and an extra 5% damage if the enemy team included a Goku or Vegeta, so he could ramp up pretty quickly when facing a Goku or Vegeta enemy. His second unique ability made him one of the best support type bruisers in the game. Every time you switched him out, he gave allies from the sagas from the movie Stag 20% damage and 20% damage reduction for 15 timer counts. A pretty insane support type buff, making him a pretty decent option for the movie team. As for the new summonable Broly, the new Broly was everything players had expected and more. For some reason, everything about him felt like it was pushed way beyond what any other unit at the time could do. He had the highest base stats in the game by a wide margin, making him so tanky and letting him hit like a truck even without many buffs. Like, his strike cards had blast armor, which was completely cracked back then. At the time, blast armor still restored your vanish in Gauge, because the game counted it as you getting hit. So you could literally vanish, use a strike attack, tank like an enemy's blast attack, recover your vanish, and just keep coming like nothing happened. Like, that single mechanic made Broly one of the hardest characters to deal with in PvP history. Then there was his green card, which not only reduced the enemy's ki, but also force switched them out of battle, something that made the previous Broly pretty broken. So imagine that on a Broly that's even better. Like, it was just insane. It was both a defensive and offensive tool at the same time, letting Broly interrupt your setup and completely ruin your rotations. And bro, his blue card was just as broken. It couldn't be stopped by most blue cards in the game, meaning even if your opponent tried to counter with a projectile type special move, it was like Blue Frieza's special moves. Like, it just literally cancelled them, like it and went through the other players' special moves. Like, it was ridiculous. And it also destroyed the enemy's hand, deleting all of their cards after impact. Like, it was just insane, bro. And since he was a transforming unit, Broly had two main abilities. His first one healed him for a massive chunk of health and buffed his damage, which made him incredibly hard to kill. Since his stats were already sky high, he also gained card draw speed, type neutrality, and other insane buffs after transforming. Then his second main ability gave him an ultimate arts card, making him even to this day the only transforming unit in the game with an ultimate arts card. To put it in perspective, Super Saiyan 3 Goku and Super Gogeta, who had both released only a month or two earlier and were seen as some of the best units in the game at the time, didn't even come close to him. They were pretty much just stats, and even though their stats were phenomenal for the time, their kits just looked so undertuned compared to Broly's encyclopedia of a passive. Like, bro, he just had so many more lines in almost every single part of his kit. So much that it honestly felt like Broly wasn't supposed to release that early. He was clearly years ahead of his time, both in terms of design and raw power. Like, he was just a complete monster. But if him being broken wasn't enough, this is the time the Holy Trinity was born. To this day, most veteran players still agree that this was the strongest PvP team the game has ever seen. The trio consisted of Blue Super Saiyan Bardock, Red Super Gogeta, and Purple Super Saiyan Broly. Broly was, like I explained earlier, by far the best unit in the game. Then Super Gogeta was still one of the hardest hitting units in the entire game, with massive strike damage and ki recovery. And then there was Blue Bardock, who tied the entire team together as arguably the best support type unit Legends ever had. Bardock's ability was the core of the team's insanity. He gave crit rate, crit damage, and overall damage buffs to all Super Saiyan allies every time he swapped out. So when he tagged out, Gogeta and Broly both became monsters, dishing out so many critical hits that could wipe out entire teams in a few combos. Like, the damage these guys were doing with Bardock's support was just insane. And Broly's high stats and tankiness meant he could dominate literally anything except like yellow units. And that's where Gogeta came in. He was red, so he could literally just take out those yellow units that Broly couldn't. So yeah, that team was literally impossible to counter. Like, literally. The synergy between them was so good that the PvP meta literally became the Holy Trinity or nothing. Like, if you didn't have Bardock, Gogeta, and Broly, you simply couldn't compete. Every high ranked player ran them. They were the three most played characters in the entire game at the time. The entire PvP ladder was filled with the same team over and over again, and there was literally no reliable counter to them. It was the first team in Legends history to truly terrorize PvP. The Holy Trinity wasn't just strong and broken, it was literally the meta. If you weren't running it, you were losing. That simple. As for Broly's banner, it featured 5 characters. The new transforming Broly, who was literally the best unit in the game, the old Dragon Ball Z Broly, who was outdated by that point and arguably one of the weakest characters in the game, Cooler, who had recently received balance changes but wasn't quite meta, and for a limited time, the main Broly banner also offered 999 Z power per pull instead of the usual 600, but only for 2 days. But even though Broly was absolutely insane, it wasn't really worth chasing dupes unless you were like a massive Broly fan. Like, this was before the dupe system changed. One copy was more than enough to completely dominate PvP with him. 4 days later, and Legends dropped some pretty big news. It was officially announced that the level cap would soon be raised to level 2000. This was pretty massive news at the time, since it meant that every unit, including the free-to-play Broly and all of the old Sparking characters, were about to get stronger. But it also meant that players would need to start stockpiling materials fast. They also dropped a new Legends Rising banner that same day, the Legends Regeneration banner. The featured units were Purple Spur Janemba, who was still very good thanks to his green card and overall versatility, Red Perfect Cell, who was surprisingly still decent on the regen team, Green Fat Boo, who was still one of the best tanks in the game, Piccolo, who was still actually pretty good on the regen team, and Yellow Demon King Piccolo, who was a balanced but outdated unit by that point, which was actually pretty crazy as the guy released not even 2 months ago. So in short, the banner had good units, but like I said previously, the Holy Trinity was the meta. So yeah, this was, as you would guess, a pretty hard skip. Another 2 days later, and we got some new VJump leaks, officially confirming that both God Goku and Beerus were finally coming to Legends, and by the end of the year, which meant one thing: they were either part of the Christmas banner or possibly the New Year's banner. Like, this was pretty hype, as they would be the first God Key units in the game, opening up the door for Gogeta Blue. The next day, and Legends dropped some Holiday Login bonus campaigns. The new Holiday Login bonus campaign started on December 1st and lasted for 19 days, giving players various rewards like Chrono Crystals, Zenny, and Soul Materials, but the key detail here was the Day 6 rewards, a Super Soul 4, set to be distributed on December 26th. Since Super Soul 4s were only required for the upcoming 2000 level class, meant that the update had to hit before or on Christmas, so that the Login rewards would line up properly. Like, the 2000 level class had to be there for them to give out those souls, so yeah, it only made sense. In total, the holiday campaign offered around 450 Chrono Crystals, which was unfortunately less than what players expected at the time, but it was better than nothing. On Christmas Eve, players were also given the choice to select their Christmas Day rewards. They could pick between 2 bonuses out of a list that included 100 Chrono Crystals, Silver Bells, Zenny, Master Pack Summon Tickets, Z Power for Red Person Goku, Red Person Vegeta, Red Person Trunks, or Android 18 or 17, and as you would guess, for most players, the choice was pretty obvious. The Chrono Crystals and the Z Powers were the best picks, especially since a Christmas banner was probably on the way. Like the VJump Leaks promised, the New Year Step Up banner was finally here, and just when we thought they couldn't pull something crazier than the Black Friday banner, Dragon Ball Legends went all in. This new banner introduced 4 new characters: Super Saiyan God Goku, Beerus, Kaioken Goku, and Saiyan Saga Vegeta. You're all familiar with the format now, but the thing that was new here is that Beerus was not featured in the normal banner pool. You could only get him through the guaranteed Sparking tickets, where he had a 20% pull rate alongside all of the featured Sparkins. This was just so stupid, and I remember people being pretty mad about it at the time, since it forced players to go deep into the banner just for a chance to get Beerus, who was actually not a Legends limited character at the time, just a ticket exclusive character, and honestly not even that great. But other than that, the banner had some of the best value Legends had ever offered. You were almost guaranteed several new units per rotation, along with dozens of other old Sparkins that had been thrown into the pool, including Purple Broly, Super Gogeta, and Super Saiyan Bardock, and many others. So yeah, the banner was crazy, and was seen by most players as the best banner the game had released up to that point. As for the new units, Super Saiyan God Goku introduced the God Ki tag into the game, and his kit was extremely well-rounded for the time. Nothing absolutely broken like Purple Broly, but still pretty decent. He started the fight by nullifying all abnormal conditions twice, meaning he couldn't be poisoned, paralyzed, or fainted right away, something that could actually be useful back then, with characters like Chilled and Frieza running around. He also nullified attribute downgrades twice, so it was actually pretty hard to debuff that guy. Then his main ability gave him his ultimate arts card, which cancelled enemies' buffs on hit. Like, that alone was actually pretty crazy, because units like Super Saiyan Bardock and Purple Broly relied heavily on stacking buffs buffs mid-fight. He even had a clutch comeback mechanic. Once both his allies were defeated, he restored 30% HP and gained strike buffs, turning him into a late game monster. And he also had blast armor on his strike cards. And I'm pretty sure you could still replenish vanishing gold from blast armor. So yeah, this was just so broken, bro, so broken. As for his stats, his offensive stats were pretty balanced, his defensive stats were pretty strong, and he had a solid key recovery, making him one of the best all-around red units in the game. He didn't completely replace Red Spur Gogeta since he didn't have the Super Saiyan tag, but outside of the Holy Trinity team, yeah, God Goku was definitely the best red unit in the game. Green Beerus was the first quote-unquote Legends limited character in Legends. He was a support type unit and wasn't designed to be the main damage dealer, but instead to completely disrupt the opponent's game plan. Every time he entered the battlefield, he sealed the enemy's main ability for 10 timer counts, and he could do it up to 3 times. That meant no transformations, no ultimates, and no healing for a huge portion of the fight. Back then, this was pretty good. It could literally shut down transforming units like Broly before they could even transform. Like, if only that guy wasn't green. Like, if he was yellow, it would have probably been over for Broly. But I guess they didn't want to have the only counter to Broly be locked behind tickets. So they just let Broly terrorize PvP for months. Like, honestly, I don't know, bro. He also increased the enemy's blast arts cost every time he switched in, slowing their combos and applied a debuff that made them take even more blast damage. On top of that, his ultimate's arts card destroyed every single card in your opponent's hand while dealing huge AoE damage. That combination of card destruction and ability ceiling made him one of the most oppressive support type units ever released to date. But even after all of that, I just don't know, bro. I personally pulled him at the time, and from what I remember, he just wasn't that good in game. Like, he felt pretty weak. Maybe I just didn't know how to properly use him. Like, his kit wasn't like some sort of no-brain character, like you had to understand what you were doing with him. But I feel like his lack of teams didn't really help. At launch, the only other God Key character in the entire game was Super Saiyan God Goku, so yeah, Beerus didn't really have a proper team. And like I said earlier, the fact that he was green didn't help, because like his main ability cancellation was only really good on like transforming units. As for Blue Kaioken Goku, he started as base Goku, but his main ability transformed him into Kaioken for 60 timer counts. Once transformed, he gained massive strike buffs, increased Vanishing Gojo recovery by 35%, and could chain combos endlessly thanks to his boosted ki recovery. Well, the downside was, as you would guess, the fact that he took more damage after transforming, so you had to be very aggressive with him, like hitting hard before your own buffs got you killed. His green card gave him strike damage and combo extension, and his blue card, the Kaioken Kamehameha, hit like a truck, especially once he transformed. The smartest way to play him was to save his main ability until he absolutely needed the burst damage, since he could finish fights on his own once he activated it. Like, he was just crazy. Like, Kaioken Goku quickly became one of the strongest blue units in the game, rivaling even the then dominant Blue Super Saiyan Bardock in terms of raw offense. Like, on mono blue teams, he was practically unstoppable. He embodied that risk-reward playstyle perfectly. You either melted your opponent or got melted yourself. Green Vegeta was a melee type unit. His main ability restored 25% HP, gave him 30% strike damage, and improved his ki recovery, which let him extend combos more easily. But his most unique mechanic was Endurance, the ability to quote-unquote revive once per battle with 20% health when defeated. That ability was actually pretty broken, as he could tank a Rising Rush with it, and this guy was surprisingly more tanky than Hercule, so it made his Endurance pretty annoying to deal with. His green card was also absolutely busted. It applied a huge debuff to the enemy, while at the same time buffing Vegeta's own damage by nearly 40%, and you could combo directly out of it. If you drew 2 of them back to back, it was literally over. Those buffs stacked and the opponent was dead. But the crazy part here is that no matter how good those new units were, they were still not as good as Purple Broly. Like, he was still seen by most players as the best unit in the game. They also that same day dropped the update that increased the level cap. The level cap officially increased from 1500 to 2000, with new Super Soul 4s required to upgrade units. These could be farmed in the part 2 of the story mode or bought in the exchange shop. This update also added a Z medal exchange shop like those dupe coins were finally usable for something, increased soul stock limits from 9,999 to 99,999. Like, this was a pretty big improvement. A new PvP season with updated PvP rewards, doubling Chrono Crystals rewards for top ranks, as I guess some sort of like holiday gift, a new farmable equipment that was actually pretty cracked with the right RNG, as it let you basically stack 3 buffs of the exact same stat, but like I said, rerolls weren't a thing yet, so you needed an insane amount of RNG to be able to pull the same stat not only 3 times, but also with decent stats, a new event that rewarded Z-Power for the yellow Extreme Vegeta, and obviously a new batch of equipments were actually pretty insane for the new Goku and Vegeta, giving them exactly what they needed. To close out the year, Legends dropped one of the craziest banners the game had ever seen to date, the New Year Rising banner, alongside the very first Happy New Year's Happy Bags. This was the first time Legends had ever done something like this, and honestly it caught everyone by surprise. The idea was simple. The banner could only be summoned on using special tickets, which you could get either from a free login bonus or from the Happy Bag packs sold in the shop. There was no Chrono Crystal version, it was like a tickets only banner, and every single summon on it guaranteed a sparking character. At the time this was absolutely unheard of. It was basically a WoW exclusive banner, but with some of the best value we had ever seen. The banner itself featured 20 sparking units, all of which were actually pretty recent characters, not some random garbage sparking like the early Legends Rising banners used to do. You had Super Gogeta, Kaioken Goku, Purple Broly, Super Saiyan God Goku, Green Vegeta, Final Form Frieza, Goku Black, Majin Vegeta, Janemba, Super Saiyan 3 Goku, and Green Bardock, all in one banner. It was genuinely insane. Like bro, if you were missing any meta unit from the past few months, this banner literally fixed that in one go. You could pull the 2 strongest characters in the game, Broly and Kaioken Goku, off the same banner. Like, this was just insane. And even if you didn't pull exactly who you wanted, it almost didn't matter, since every ticket guaranteed a sparking unit, meaning you were walking away with something good every single time. And obviously alongside the banner came the very first Happy Bag packs. At the time there were 3 versions: the blue bag for $8, which gave you 2 tickets, training items and skip tickets, the silver bag for $25, which gave you 6 tickets, more trainer materials and energy, and finally the gold bag, which was the big one. For $80 you got 20 sparking tickets, 500 of every Rising Soul, 70 Super Souls, and hundreds of skip and energy tickets. And the craziest part is that even though it was expensive, it was kind of a fair deal for those who were already planning to spend money. And everyone still got at least 1 free ticket from the login bonus. So even free-to-play players got a guaranteed sparking, which was actually pretty generous for the time. But for the players who went all in and bought the gold bag, yeah bro, they ate good that day. But beyond just being hype, this banner was actually a turning point for the game. Up until then, every banner was built around Chrono Crystals, meaning free-to-play players could summon on them. But the Happy Bags showed that Bandai was ready to start pushing real money-only banners. And the good or bad part is that it worked. The value was so high that a lot of free-to-play players, yeah, pulled up the credit card. Pretty crazy how both Legends and Dokkan dropped a banner at the same time that was so high value that it literally took many players' free-to-play virginity. At the same time though, it did spark a bit of controversy. This was technically the first pay-to-win banner in Legends history. Free players only got 1 pull, while paying players could instantly summon 20 times and walk away with a box full of meta units. It was definitely a moment that split the community a bit, but most people agreed that at least this time the pricing was fair and the value was undeniable. Like, regular spending players could afford that if they wanted to. It wasn't something like exclusive to wells and rich people. Overall, I think this is probably what made the devs really enforce the monetization in that game. They probably saw how much money they made from that banner, and I guess it was just over afterwards. Like, we know gacha games plan things like way ahead of times. Thanks to Umatsu, we know that Dokkan's schedule is planned a year in advance, so it wouldn't surprise me if it's the same thing for Legends. And what came exactly a year after that banner? Probably the most pay-to-win shit that ever released in a gacha game. The first version of the Zenkai system. But yeah, this is it for today's video. In the next history video, we'll go over a slower month. Nothing absolutely crazy happened that month, but we did get some pretty cool new units getting introduced to Legends. So yeah, I'll see you there. Take care. Peace.